Some of the worst paints I've used came from Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore. These paints are expensive, they sound premium, but they can ruin your project and your wallet. Yo, what's cracking folks? Jeremy Vassar here, and I've been a professional painter for over 20 years, and I've used almost every paint both of these stores sell, so you don't have to try them all out. In this video, I'll show you the paints to absolutely avoid at Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore, what paints you should buy instead, and the paints are gonna get progressively worse as I move through this list, and I've got two from each manufacturer, so let's get into it. Coming in at number 1 is a paint that a Sherwin-Williams employee is likely to recommend to you, but you should avoid it like Bonesaw McGraw in a cage match.
Bonesaw is ready!
Hey, freak show, you're going nowhere. All right, I'll stop. So I actually did use this product recently when I repainted my office. A couple of the walls in there were gonna be a tricorn black, which is a very dark color and tends to be hard to work with. So I reached out to my sales rep. I'm like, hey, what are people using for this type of application? He recommended a product which I had skeptical hippo eyes about using, but I went ahead and used it anyway. And it laid down relatively well. It looked decent once it dried. However, at the lightest of touches, it marked up like crazy, it burnished, and it looked awful, like at the slightest touch. And the paint that I used is cashmere flat enamel, which is not great. I also don't like cashmere in any of the other sheens, and even in the regular colors that come in either like a deep base or just a regular extra white base. I generally don't like how the finishes look. They're not durable, and there are just a lot of other better products around. And that's actually a fairly expensive product. So if you want more of a mid-tier product from Sherwin-Williams, I'd recommend going with the Super Paint line. Those paints perform really consistently. It's just more of a straightforward product, and the finishes just look like what they say on the can. A much better option at a slightly lower price point. Moving on to the second product, and this is actually a pretty expensive trim paint that a lot of professionals use. I'm told that they use it. I've actually never met someone that actually likes using this product. My whole crew won't use it, so we don't. But we have used it in a variety of applications on trim, doors, kitchen cabinets, all that good stuff, and it is an incredibly hard product to work with. As soon as you start painting it, it dries and you can't come back into it, so your brush strokes will actually like start pulling the paint up, it starts to chalk up. So then they say to add extender to it, which is like paint thinner, but for acrylic products, so it like loosens the paint, it makes it so it stays wet longer. It's supposed to make it easier to work with, but even with extender added to it, it's still really hard to work with. And even though it's thick and it dries quickly, it's still prone to drips. And even if you avoid all of that and you lay it down reasonably well, I still don't like how it looks when it's dry. It has like a greasy feel to it, and I just never like the finish. That product is called Pro Classic, and it's awful. If you want a trim paint that's actually good, I'd recommend Emerald Urethane Trim Enamel and Semi-Gloss. It's our go-to trim paint. It lays down really nice. The open time is quite generous, so you don't have to put anything into the paint to make it easier to work with. Once you get used to it, you can get a really high quality finish out of, and it is currently my favorite trim paint. Now, I know we're having a little fun roasting some of these paints, but here's the truth. Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, Lowe's, and Home Depot also have amazing paints. We use them every week. If you want our complete list of the best paints to actually buy at all 4 of those stores, consider joining our free group for DIYers. It's called Paint Your Home Now, the free edition. I'm not supposed to talk about the paid one, but anyway, if you're interested in that, check out the link in the description, and perhaps I will see you in there. Alrighty, now let's talk about a paint that made us redo an entire project, and this one comes from the land of Warren Buffett, Benjamin Moore. Now, this product is very close to being my least favorite of all of these on the list, but I put it in at number 3 because of what happened to the product that's at number 4, which I will get to in a minute. We had a client that wanted the best paint, so she went with that and insisted that we use it. We're like, okay, it's not what we typically use, but we used it. We started having issues with it as soon as we started laying it down. The paint spread like hot mayonnaise. It was just super thick. The cut-ins took forever. And even the cut-ins, before we even rolled into them, started to kind of melt off the wall where it was a little bit thicker, particularly over door frames and different cut-ins and stuff. And then when we rolled into the cut-ins, that's when we really saw the issues where the walls wept almost everywhere. It looked like melted candle wax all over the walls. And that product was Aura in the eggshell finish, and it is Benjamin Moore's flagship product. It's very expensive and incredibly difficult to work with. If you want a product that's much easier to work with from Benjamin Moore, I'd recommend going with Regal Select in the matte finish. That is much more manageable at a lower price point. I think you'll be much happier with it. And now in the number 4 slot, let's talk about a paint that genuinely used to be one of my favorites. And I've got 2 stories for you in this section. I'm gonna tell you one right now and then one after I tell you what the product is. And a little inside baseball for you on what happens in the paint industry. A lot of paint manufacturers will alter the formulations of products without telling anyone. Sometimes they don't even change the can, which is quite frustrating, where they just cut things loose and we don't know that the formulation has changed. So we went ahead and used it the way we had used it before without knowing, and we started to run into problems immediately. It was very similar to the Aura experience, where we cut in, and then as soon as we rolled into the cut-ins, the walls wept and had that kind of melted wax look everywhere, and it looked awful. So we had to sand it down, spackle, do all that stuff. And then what we ended up doing is actually cutting in, waiting for the cut-ins to dry completely, and we dropped down to a much tighter nap roller. We went from a 1/2 inch to a 3/8 and rolled into the dry cut-ins, and that worked out a little bit better, but it was a big pain in the butt to work with. And that product is Regal Select in Eggshell, which again is a big bummer because it used to be one of my favorite products. After that job, I made a video where I talked about the experience that we had with that product, and the fella that was in charge of launching that formulation saw that video and then invited my brother and I out to Benjamin Moore's laboratory where they develop products over in New Jersey. So we went over there, we got a tour, we got to hang out with a bunch of chemists, and they showed us different paints, and it was really cool. You can see a picture of me out in their field where they're testing products and all these crazy drying racks. But then later, Josh and I ended up painting in their laboratory with Regal Select Eggshell, and we actually got that product to fail the same way it failed in the field, like right in front of all these people that were watching us. They were measuring our cut-ins and how thick we were rolling it and all that stuff. And they were kind of like, well, that probably shouldn't happen. And we were like, we thought so. But it was a really cool experience, and I just wish they would reformulate it back from whence it came, because it was an amazing product. And if you still want to use the Regal Select line, I would recommend dropping down to the Regal Select Matte. It is a much better product. It has a good finish quality and is still fairly durable, and again, way easier to work with than the eggshell finish. Now you know which expensive paints to avoid and what to buy instead, but even with the best paint, there are still a few mistakes that can ruin your walls. Check out this video right over here where we break down the top wall painting mistakes and how to fix them. Until next time, y'all take it easy, work smart, and have a good one. Peace.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.